Check one, check two. It's G from the Academy, bringing you another, hopefully swift message to keep your brain functions intact, to keep you thinking, to keep you on your toes. Welcome to planet Earth. Welcome to Upside Down Land. Welcome to the place where right is wrong and left is right. Welcome to the place where garden centers are essential, but doctors are not. Yep, that's the world we live in. That's the world we live in. Welcome to the place where bicycle shops are essential, but schools are not. That's the world we live in, right? That's the world we've created. That's the world we've created from our illusion of value. That's our mixed reality. If you're going to sell something, anything, to people, you have to understand their pressure points, their pain points. It's so true. It's so true that if you're going to sell something like virtual reality to people, you have to make the actual reality so terrible and horrible that people would want to escape. Yeah. Do you think you would really need a holiday if your life was balanced? No, you'd be living like you were on holiday, right? You'd be living to enjoy the moments. But no, we don't. We have insanity instead of reality. We pay to live on the planet that we were born on. We don't need to. Right? We don't need to. The energy could be free. Right? The energy could be free. But then it can't because that's control. Right? Yes, but then everything could be free. No, that's not what I'm saying. I'm not saying that everything should be free. I'm not saying that everything should be universal. Because without effort, we're not able to understand the value inherent in something. Some jobs are more dangerous than other jobs, right? Right? And that's the kind of inverted value misconception that we have in the modern world. You know, I once read an article about the failure of a lot of large car manufacturers. And one of the big mistakes that they all made was not valuing the technicians within the firms enough, not valuing the people dealing with the practicalities enough. Having too many people involved in legalities. Not that it's not important, but when you understand that rises in crime are directly proportional to rises in investments in legal systems, which even includes educating people in those legal systems. And then when you map the statistics of the rise in crime with, say, the rise of people studying legal systems, then very often what you find is that crime follows the studies, almost as if those that then qualify to work in the legal system require problems so that they can function. Sounds crazy, doesn't it? Sounds crazy. A lot of things are counterintuitive, which is why they're hard to comprehend. Yeah. Is it really possible that education with all the money and all the investment and all the knowledge and all the practicality and all the experience might actually not function? Right? Is it really possible that with all the financial incentives we have that businesses won't work? Welcome to the madness. Welcome to the startup culture. Oh, you've got a company. Here's some money. It's bad on both sides, right? It's bad because the company, the small company can't build value. It gets given value. And the small company is also giving away its power at that point to the investors. So, despite the fact that all the articles are happy, 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 the reality is something that's quite different. Yeah, reality is a world of difference and differences. Of course it is. Of course it is. So, top of the morning, afternoon, evening to you. You know the sun gets up in this part of the world at like 4:30. It's not earlier than 4:30 it gets up at. That's wild, right? That is so wild. Wanted to get up this morning to catch the sunrise. But it would have been easier just not to go to bed, really. Um, hmm, hmm. Oh well. Oh well. So I hope you're doing well. Let's dive into what's been happening on the surface of this mad rock. See if we can make sense of anything. Something. Make sense of something. Right. Apologies to audio listeners if you're not catching the video for this. I'll try to narrate some context. There's a lot of banging and booming going on around here. Anyway, here's a video of soldiers dancing. Aren't they supposed to be protecting people? Aren't they? Aren't they supposed to be protecting people? I'm not sure you want your soldiers dancing choreographed routines. Anyway, the comment makes the point. In a few hours after the dancing is over, it will be curfew time in Atlanta and the other 50 plus states. And everybody joins in with the foolishness of normalizing what is a semi-militarized police state, basically. Right? We can normalize everything because we adapt, right? We adapt to whatever garbage we're given. Our bodies adapt. Our mind adapts. Just like the policeman used to be a friendly face. You know, when you hear a police siren, when you see a police car, when you see a policeman, policewoman, do you feel safer? Do you feel more secure? Do you feel like protected? Do you feel like they've got your back? Yeah, despite the fact they've got all the power and all the authority and all the influence, I think in general people don't feel safe. They don't feel protected. They don't feel secure in their worlds with all their worldly possessions. That's what I think anyway. It's what I've observed. How do you know the truth? Observe. Observe. Look at what is happening around and about. Observe. Look at your locality. Understand your environment. Use all that you have around you. You want a truth? I'll tell you a truth. Space. The space around you is often the most underused asset in any locality. People forget to use what they have. They forget to see what's in front of them. They forget to appreciate life. Even when the mirror tells us things that we don't want to hear, we forget to appreciate life. And all the lessons are out there to learn. We understand through reflection, but reflections can also be illusions. Oh yeah, illusions. So much of what we're taught is information that was bought, right? SaulMartinGano.com. In the 1918 Spanish flu, only the vaccinated died. Despite the fact vaccine promoters claim that vaccines wipe out most infectious diseases, actually, it's healthy living, it's fresh air, it's clean water, it's sunshine, right? Did you know that more people died from the Spanish flu, and it wasn't Spanish, right? Because that's misdirection. Most people died from the flu. More people died from the flu than died in the war. Because the flu was the real war. The testing of experimental medicine on the soldiers, on the people who had sold themselves to the system for the promise of the silver and gold. In the book Vaccination Condemned by Eleanor McBean, the author describes in detail personal and family experiences during the 1918 Spanish flu pandemic. McBean's coverage of the 1918 Spanish flu as a reporter and an unvaccinated survivor requires that the historical basis of the events needs to be revisited. Needs to be revisited. A second book by Eleanor McBean, Vaccination, the Silent Killer, also exists. In this book, McBean provides evidence that not only were the historical events of the 1918 Spanish flu compromised, but also those of other epidemics. The American government, supported by Big Pharma, tested experimental flu vaccinations on the soldiers, which it then sent into unhygienic conditions around the world, spreading the flu virus, spreading the flu virus. Wasn't it Prince Philip who wrote that he'd like to come back as a virus and infect the world? But people don't know that because people are spending their spending their time in a quest for the wrong things, right? In a world that simply focuses on infantilization, treating adults like kids, believing that marble racing is equal to Formula One. You think I'm joking? I'm not. Go to youtube.com and check out Marbula E-Race 3 Jakarta. Seriously. The time and effort, energy put into this, which could be put into something else. Education, understanding, history, knowledge, sharing. Oh yeah. Oh yeah, it could. It could. But so many of society, not all, but so many are lost. Right? But it's not that it's a bad thing to be lost. It's just where you're lost and what you're lost on, right? As they say, not all those who wander are lost. And not all those searching wish to find something. It's all about the base. No, it's all about the quest, really. It's all about the quest. If you want to be successful, if you want just one specific answer, then you need to ask just one specific question. Just ask one question. AHRP.org reports Lancet editor spills the beans as Britain's PM surrenders to the Gates vaccine cartel. Oh yeah. Oh yeah. What's going on behind the scenes? What's going on behind the scenes is that the medical mafia is here. So once we had this idea that the mafia would be big thugs with big clubs who would go around and say, pay us for your protection. Oh, who are you protecting me from? We're protecting you from us. Right? Right? Or they'd smash in your windows or burn down your store or, do something worse. Pay us. But then they got smart, right? They got smart and realized that they could use the cover of authority, local authority, regional authority, national authority. And they got smart. They realized that people fear certain things. Of course, the greatest fear that most people have is pain leading to death. And that if they could somehow tap into that element, if they could promise salvation in some way, that people would do almost anything that they wanted, right? It's a higher principle of the simple principle that money buys you freedom, right? The people wanted a little bit, and what people really want is freedom. They don't know that they want it because they're driven by fear into a false sense of security. But the mafia wised up, right? They realized they could hide behind papers, they could hide behind lawyers, they could hide behind courts, they could hide behind lab coats, they could hide behind clipboards, they could hide behind machines, they could hide behind globalism, they could hide behind the distance. That's what they realized. And now the mafia is here. It's invisible, but it's here. In a videotaped interview on May the 24th, 2020, Dr. Dauste Blasi provided insight into how a series of negative hydroxychloroquine studies got published in prestigious medical journals. And of course, these journals have now had to retract these stories because these stories were fake and these studies were false. He revealed that a recent Chatham House top secret closed door meeting attended by experts only, and editors of both the Lancet and the New England Journal of Medicine. The Chatham House is in London. Now what's the journal of anyway, the editors of the Lancet and New England Journal expressed their exasperation, citing the pressures put on them by pharmaceutical companies. The pressure. Each of the editors used the word criminal to describe the erosion of science. The erosion of science, the replacement of fact with feeling. Feeling good. Do-do, 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 do-do. Quote Dr. Richard Horton. If this continues, we are not going to be able to publish any more clinical research data because pharmaceutical companies are so financially powerful that they are able to pressure us to accept papers that are apparently methodologically perfect. But their conclusion is what pharmaceutical companies want. Now, it doesn't take a lot of research to go and find the previous editors of the British Medical Journal or the Lancet or the New England Journal of Medicine saying that there's a giant question mark over what is published. There's a giant question mark over whether a lot of studies are actually real or fake. And very often they're a mix, which makes it even harder, right? You know, the best liars tell the truth most of the time, right? Yeah, and everything is, everything out there is to keep you away from everything that people just don't want you to know about. There's so much that people just don't want you to know about. Seriously. We have to track and trace each individual and vaccinate them because of a mysterious virus. However, every year, did you know that every year Spain has 20,000 missing children, Australia 25,000 missing children, France 39,000 missing children, Brazil 40,000 missing children, Mexico 45,000 missing children, Canada 50,000 missing children, Germany 100,000 missing children, the United Kingdom 230,000. That's not right. That can't possibly be right. I know that a large number disappear every day, but that number for the United Kingdom cannot be right. Well, that would mean that's a ridiculous number. That can't possibly be right. The United States, 800. Look, I think the UK and United States statistics there are slightly exaggerated, right? But I do know that the statistics in Europe are frightening. There's something like 200 children a day in Britain go missing. Now, some of them are found, recovered, etc. But it's crazy. So if it was 200 a day, my mathematics is not very good. If it's 365, it would be like 333. I don't know. You could say 36,000 cases a year, maybe. Wow. It's definitely not as high as those numbers, but we should realize, well, I hope it's not as high as those numbers. We should realize that the focus is important. We should also be careful when posting information to double check it before we actually post it. Dun dun dun. Yeah, if it's too good to be true, it's probably not true, right? If it's too good to be true, it's probably not true. So those statistics are inflated. but the problem is still there. Moving on. Web.archive.org has an article about tax returns. How exciting are tax returns, huh? Leaked IRS tax returns show that George Soros wired 1.7 million to Antifa. OffendedAmerica.com reports for the first time the sources of money for Antifa have been revealed to the public. Previous claims of Soros funding to Antifa were dismissive as conjecture. So far, these are the major resistance funders that have been revealed. The Open Society Foundation, 1.7 million. Kellogg Foundation, 300 million. Interesting, because they started, Kellogg's started with their like breakfast cereals, which are kind of impregnated with questionable ingredients. It's true. It's true that maybe breakfast cereals are not the brightest way to start your day, but they've got a big picture of the sun on the box, so it must be good, right? Anyway, Kellogg's took its money and worked with KBR, which is Kellogg, isn't it Kellogg Brown and Root, I think, and isn't that a military organization? Huh? Don't they work in funding military and providing services to military and weaponizing the world? Huh? So, theoretically, every time you buy a breakfast cereal, but then everything is a military foundation. Walmart was a military foundation. Target, why do you think it's called Target, right? All the big operations were government-sponsored operations. And that doesn't mean they were bad, right? It doesn't mean if you mobilize military to help people, to actually help people, it doesn't mean it's a bad thing. But as the Living Color song goes, know your history, know your history. California Endowment provided $500,000 to Antifa, the Ford Foundation, $2.3 million, and Hillary Clinton's foundation, Onward Together, $800,000. Now, overall, that's not really a lot of money, considering the size of the movement. But this is what we're able to uncover and discover. The underground economy is always larger than the overground economy, right? Strange but true. Strange but true. Just have a look around at what's going on. Check out the receipts. Read the fine print. Yeah. Information here comes from the Washington Free Beacon. The Free Beacon has obtained the group's rejected 2015 tax forms that shed light on its funders who provide millions of dollars in assistance. The group appears to rely heavily on a few major liberal foundations, organizations, and unions. Strikes me even more that last post, which was a graphic, that the graphic didn't have sources, right? And somebody asked me yesterday, they said, what are your sources? And I was like, boom, 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 boom. These are my sources. I was like, okay, argument. You got an argument when you've got sources, right? Everyone's got an opinion, but that doesn't make you right, right? Interesting. Yeah, interesting. Talking about interesting, the World Economic Forum has a strategic intelligence plan related to COVID-19. Did you know that? A strategic intelligence plan. The World Economic Forum. Who would have thought, right? Who would have thought that's where the money is going? Who would have thought that an international cabal of organizations and people might actually be behind what is going on? And suddenly all the documents roll out and all the information rolls out, and we discover that the plans had been sitting on the shelf for a long period of time. So you might want to check out the World Economic Forum's plan for impact on financial markets, impacts on travel, trade, infections, workplace. Yeah, every area of life. Every area of life. And it's what an amazing graphic, because everything from geoeconomics to justice and law to migration to aviation to aging. This is a plan to micromanage every single little part of everybody's life, right? Beware, 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 beware. Um, he's a very something bear, right? YouTube.com. You've heard of that, right? You've heard of that place, yeah. See, COVID-19 epidemiology in the doc. Epidemiology in the doc. It's a good presentation. Watch it. Watch it. Watch it. Um, just a quote from the beginning of that presentation. It turns out that the problem wasn't just them, referring to the people that we know. It was every epidemiologist on the planet. Their entire science turns out to be fraudulent, and it's a big deal. And it's a big deal. Okay, now these are doctors, right? These are doctors presenting studies which hopefully haven't been doctored, right? Because a lot of stuff is. And if you want real science, don't forget to check out the weekly science report that I post up on my Facebook page. And I can't remember the name of the person. It's Stephen Dietweiler or something like that. Some weird name. He produces a nice little weekly newsletter with information about all the latest discoveries around the world, sort of in the last week. And there's thousands of new discoveries that change history every week. And unfortunately, they don't filter into schools at all, because schools are just one-dimensional. It's information about paleontology, evolution, history, archaeology, Egyptology, general science, physics, space physics, climate change, alternative energy, genetics, medical sciences, and lots of other stuff as well. Check it out. Interesting story this week about the Titanic that was in there. That some company wants to send a robot down to get some of the data machines off the Titanic. I've always wondered about that, right? Why would you be so interested in something that's old at the bottom of the ocean? Who's paying for that, right? Because it's going to cost a lot of money to do that. Who's paying for that, and what value does it have at the end of the day? Well, part of the answer to that is looking into who traveled on the Titanic, or who got off the ship and who didn't. Oh, and first of all, who got on the ship at the beginning that was supposed to get on the ship, and who didn't get on the ship that was supposed to get on the ship, and then who was on the ship that didn't get off, right? That giant floating prison, right? And of course, was the Titanic actually the Titanic? Or was it the Olympic? Or even the Britannic? Did you know there were 3 ships? Did you know there were 3? Right. Interesting histories. Interesting histories. There's a strong possibility that the Titanic was not actually the Titanic. Oh, how can you say that? How is that even possible? Well, it's not as complicated as it sounds. All you got to do is change the name on the side of the ship. When you've got a lot of ships that look the same, your average Joe is not going to know. Right? Right? All you've got to do is... and of course... but the name... to stop fraud, names were usually engraved in the side of the ship, or names were put on ships in a way that they couldn't be changed, because then fraud was easy. And you look at what they did with the names on the Olympic and Titanic. Right. Right. That stuff is the whole story is questionable, but those facts are not. Those facts are not. Um, Meanwhile, dailymail.co.uk reports that 2 people are arrested in Ohio for a car full of weapons. A very strange collection of weapons they have, according to these pictures. But police in New York have thanked protesters who alerted them to an Ohio-registered car which was found to be full of weapons. Officers said they were tipped off by demonstrators in Brooklyn who on Thursday saw a man waving a machete near a car with Ohio plates. There's machetes and strange helmets and masks and knives and giant screwdrivers, bricks, and I don't know. It's weird. Strange times, right? Strange times. Strange times where people actually think very often they're contributing to the welfare of society when they're not. Of course, there's a strong argument for, what contributes to the welfare. I think that anything that contributes to truthful discovery or truthful self-discovery is in some way beneficial. And as a side note, I got this great email from a company that said, "We love your work. We want to repost and use your work. Let us know if you're interested in us using your work so we can send you our price list." That's funny. It's very funny. I mean, how is that even a business model? Who would even respond to that in a positive way? You'd have to be completely desperate. But then a lot of people are desperate. Yeah. Because they don't have the self skills, the resources within themselves. They're desperate to hold on to anything that they think is going to help them. Spectator.co.uk. Norway health chief states the lockdown was not needed. You don't say. You don't say. So we've now had the German government, we've now had the Italian parliament, we've now had parts of the British government, and this is the Norwegian government now saying that lockdown response was a hoax. Now, I'm not just saying that. Go and research it. The documents are there. And this is what we know about. The question is, what is going on that we don't know about, right? Norway is assembling a picture of what happened before lockdown, and its latest discovery is pretty significant. It is using observed data, hospital figures, infection numbers, and so on to construct a picture of what is happening of what was happening in March. At the time, no one really knew. It was feared the virus was rampant, with each person infecting 2 or 3 others, and only lockdown could get this exponential growth, the so-called R number, down to a safe level of 1. And if you look at how these, that's a fraudulent way of measuring things and easily manipulated. It's not a fraudulent way; it's just easily manipulated as well. And it's also done to confuse people. Yeah, the science. If you can't dazzle people with brilliance, you just baffle them with bollocks, basically. This was the hypothesis advanced in various graphs by Imperial College London for Britain, Norway, and several European countries. But the Norwegian Public Health Authority has published a report with a striking conclusion. The virus was never spreading as fast as had been feared and was already on the way out when lockdown was ordered. Now, this came out in British government documents where they downgraded C-19 as a non-infectious disease before the lockdown happened. So why did the lockdown happen? Well, that was pressure from companies, wasn't it? We covered that earlier. It was pressure. Anyway, it looks as if the effective reproduction rate had already dropped to around 1.1. Yeah, basically, if the media hadn't told everybody that it was dangerous, then nobody would have noticed because it wasn't dangerous. But then it shows you how suggestive people are, which shows you how dangerous the media is. Talk about corporate government fascism. It's corporate government media pharmaceutical fascism is what we're dealing with. It looks as if the effective reproduction rate had already dropped to 1.1 when the most comprehensive measures were implemented. Dun dun dun. Question is, have we done enough to save the world, or is the economic spill out from the lockdown going to basically destroy everything that has taken hundreds of years to build up? Meanwhile, the virus appears to have been destroyed by protests. Nobody appears to be social distancing anywhere that they should be. FreeThoughtProject.com points out solutions you won't hear from politicians on how to end police violence. Don't agree with everything, but I'm always interested in solutions. To quote the article, the answer is the free market. The free market. Put simply, police officers can be corrupt, kill with impunity, and are rarely held accountable because Americans have no other choice. We are stuck with them. In any other job market on the planet, if they had a death toll of 1,000 Americans a year, they would be put out of business overnight. However, because cops have a monopoly on law enforcement in America, the death toll keeps rising. And it's kind of self-fulfilling prophecy because, oh no, it's getting worse, so we need more cops, and so it gets worse again, right? This is the problem with power, authority, and government. By allowing competition in law enforcement, the incentives for policing would drastically shift. Violent police departments would be fired and replaced with less violent ones. Cops would have an incentive to serve their communities by solving real crimes like rape and murder instead of kidnapping and caging people for victimless crimes. Yes, the fact that you're not allowed to put into your own body what you want to put into your own body, that's a tough argument. That, I mean, should all substances be legal? There's a strong argument for yes. Make all substances legal, put users on prescription, and destigmatize the drugs. They're not cool. And then when you legalize it, you can tax it. It doesn't go underground, and you're not making those huge underground profits. Because remember, as I stated earlier, very often the underground economy is much bigger than the overground one. Just think about arms trades and deals worldwide. Yeah. And factor into that the ridiculousness of paying huge sums of money for works of art, which is just, legalized money washing and laundering, basically. If getting rid of police departments and leaving things to the free market sounds like a pipe dream to you, then you've probably never heard of Dale Brown. Dale Brown of Detroit's Threat Management Center has shown that crime can be stopped and lives can be saved by independent people using non-lethal tactics. In areas of Detroit where police don't answer 911 calls. It's too dangerous for the police. Dale Brown took matters into his own hands and started taking those calls himself. And because Dale was not above the law, as police officers claimed to be, he had to solve these crimes without hurting people because he would actually be held accountable for his actions. Yes, businesses pay for these services. However, as a side effect of providing businesses with security, Dale has also been able to provide service in poor neighborhoods for free by financing his business through providing security for high-income areas. And that's one of those curious examples of trickle-down where rich people can be of benefit to poor communities. You don't want everyone to be poor, right? Right? Anyway, do we have a race problem? Do we have a police problem? Do we have a state problem? It's hard to know. Maybe it's a media problem. It's It's hard to talk about the most recent developments because people are so emotionally bound to their perception and perspective of reality. Yeah. What I mean by that is people get killed by the police all the time. It's wrong. Policemen and women also get killed all the time, and that's wrong. It's all wrong. It's wrong on all sides. It's wrong on all sides. Anyway, a couple of things I want to point out. Don't agree with police brutality. Anyone who brutalizes people should be placed in prison as hopefully a form of rehabilitation, but I'm not for re-education, so there you go. I once heard somebody say the parents, if you could arrest, that the parents are to blame, right? If you could arrest parents for the crimes of their children, then parents would be much more aware of their methods of upbringing their kids. Some truth in that. Made me think. Of course, there's ethical problems in charging one person for the crimes of another, but especially when they're adults. But it's interesting. Anyway, like it or not, you probably won't. Here are some facts. George Floyd was a repeat offender, violent criminal, gang member, thief, armed robber, and drug dealer. He was not an icon of angelic behavior in the local community. George Floyd tragically died while being arrested by 4 Minneapolis police officers. He was arrested for passing a $20 counterfeit bill to add to his crimes. Though George was murdered brutally, nobody is aware of George Floyd's criminal past arrest record timeline for armed robbery, allegedly pointing a gun at a pregnant woman. That's not a crime, but what was happening around him at that time was a crime. And being involved in cocaine charges. Yes, he had drugs on him and in his system when he was arrested. Please note, images to support this include photographs of his court record, the original autopsy showing drugs in his system, court documents, spelt wrong, a video of him dropping drugs at the scene of his arrest. I've watched that. He is dropping drugs at the scene of his arrest. Yeah, mainstream media doesn't want to tell you that. There's also a video of his professing to be a member of a gang as well. So a stellar member of the local community. Stellar member. Yeah. You live by the sword, you die by the sword. It's pretty much how it goes. The head of Minneapolis Police Union says that George Floyd's violent criminal history needs to be remembered and that the protests over his death are the work of a movement of people interested in gaining their own advantages. They never cared about black people before. They never cared about the black neighborhoods before. They never cared about the black kids before. They never cared about the black schools before. They never cared about the black abortions before. They never cared before. And they don't care now. What is not being told is the violent criminal history of George Floyd. The media will not air this. Police Union President Bob Kroll told his members in a letter posted Monday on Twitter. Floyd had landed 5 years behind bars in 2009 for an assault and robbery 2 years earlier. And before that he had been convicted of charges ranging from theft with a firearm to drugs. Reported in the Daily Mail and the New York Post.com. Crazy, isn't it? Crazy, isn't it, how sometimes we only hear one side of the story. Floyd pleaded guilty to robbery, where another suspect posed as a worker for the local water department wearing a blue uniform in an attempt to gain access to a woman's home, according to the charging document. But when the woman opened the door, she realized he was not with the water department and attempted to close the door, leading to a struggle. At that time, A Ford Explorer vehicle pulled up to the home and 5 other males exited the car and went up to the front door. The report states the largest of the group, who the victim later identified as Floyd, forced his way inside the residence, placing a pistol against the complainant. Is that a word? Complainant. Is that a word? Complainant's abdomen, and forcing her into the living room area of the residence. This large suspect then proceeded to search the residence while another armed suspect guarded the complainant, who was struck in the head and sides by the second armed suspect with a pistol while she screamed for help. Not finding any drugs or money in the house, the men took jewelry and the woman's cell phone and fled in their car. A neighbor who witnessed the robbery took down the car's license plate number. Later, police tracked down the car and found Floyd behind the wheel. He was later identified by the woman as the large suspect who placed a gun against her stomach and forced her into the living room. Yep. These are the kinds of people that we are worshipping. Yeah. Yep, this is why we're tearing down neighborhoods and burning buildings and destroying businesses and fighting with each other. This is why we're leaving pallets full of bricks in certain neighborhoods, right? I guess it's not so that we can play Minecraft, is it? Intelihub.com reports pallets of bricks delivered to Texas town. And just left lying around for people to pick up. For the cabal to outstretch their tentacles and effect some positive affirmative action in society. Oh, yes. Yes. Meanwhile, it pulls our attention away from fantastic events like the vaccine summit in London, where billions and billions and billions of dollars was raised by the military industrial pharmaceutical complex so that they can run more experiments on the populace. On the populace. Yep. Yep. Wasn't that doctor advising Trump called Bricks? Wasn't that her name? Bizarre, huh? Just bizarre. And this is the kind of reality that's created, right? The reality that's created is it's dystopic. It's dystopic. They always tell you they're going to take you to utopia, but they always take a turn off the main road, right? They always have a tangential path. Yeah, people who don't know you are in general not going to help you unless it's something that only takes 20 seconds, like, excuse me, can you point me to? Somebody will help you then, but deeper than that, we don't go. Here's a theory, right? We don't go deeper than that because at school we're always told to do your own work, right? Do your own work, and we're told to, we collectivize the idea and the community, but we don't actually learn to help each other. No, it's a test. You can't help, life is the test, and if we don't help each other in life, we're screwed, right? We're screwed. Life is a team sport. Don't forget it. Don't forget it. And we're always presented with this false reality. How much of what is put out in the media is actually real and true? You've got to live with what you've seen, deal with it and understand it, and assume that everything else is a question mark. That's the only way to find peace. That's the only way to find peace. To have peace within you. And if you don't have it within you, you need to find an environment where you can have it. At least for a little bit of time each day. Everybody's got to have 20, 30 minutes of their peace, their time to themselves, right? Where they're away from the nonsense, away from the insanity, away from the madness. Everybody's got to have it. Sometimes you have to go an extra mile to get there, but everybody needs it. Everybody needs it. It's just one of those principles that leads to success. Just one of those principles. You want another one? Ask yourself what you can do that others are not prepared to do. Therein lies the answers to some of the things that maybe you should, if they are moral, engage in. Engage in, right? There's a lot of negativity going around. A lot of angry people. Tell you something else, angry people are easily manipulated. Right? Once you lose emotional control, you can be flexed. You can be flexed in one way or the other. You can be told that writing on this wall is going to make things better. Smashing up these statues is going to improve the quality of life. Putting bricks through these windows is a great idea. Why don't you just get in your car and drive through a crowd of people, right? Because you're angry. You're angry and you want to make other people angry. Predominantly because you're not loved and you don't know what love is, so all you've got is anger and hate and fear and pain, and you want the world to know. You want the world to know, so you scream. You scream, right? You scream. Meanwhile, behind the scenes, the prepared prepare. The prepared prepare. Shipping containers could be used as vaccination centers in the UK. Because it's a military operation. Make no doubt about it, it's a military operation. In a recent proposal, a fleet of mobile vaccination centres could be transported around the UK on trucks and could be parked in open public spaces such as car parks or shopping centres, schools and sports buildings. The sports centres were never really for sport. Think about what happened in those South American when the South American coups where dictators took over. Where did they round people up? Where did they take them? Right. It can also be used in situations of national disaster as well. But think about it. Yeah. Why did America have big 6-lane highways? Were they always for cars? Were they? Were they? Look like runways to me. Look like runways to me. Yeah. Wall Thistleton Architects has estimated that 60 million people in the UK could be vaccinated in 12 to 16 weeks, assuming that each of the 6,500 units administered 6 injections per hour or over 12 hours for 7 days a week. You see, it's a scientific military operation. 2 nurses and 1 administrator working on rotation would be needed per unit to hit the target. Hit the target. You're a target. You're a target. And you don't even know. And all of this for a virus with a mortality rate of 0.0004%. Oh yeah. Oh yeah. So true. So true. But some do speak the truth. You search for them. They're out there. They're out there. They get demonized, demonetized, attacked, and vilified. But they're out there. Secret Service walking through DC with long duffel bags and badges, barging through there. You know, I'll tell you one of the greatest modern inventions. It's a double-edged sword. It's the mobile phone with the camera on it. At least we get a glimmer and glimpse of other people's realities through it. At least we do. Yeah, at least we do. There are good people doing good things. There are good people doing good things. We have to keep telling ourselves this. There are good people doing good things. There are good people doing good things. Oh yeah. So, before I lose my mind, I think this data dump, this dissemination of information should conclude right here. Thank you very much for tuning in. Thank you very much for paying attention. And I hope wherever you are, the sun is shining a little bit. I hope that you get outside. I hope you get some fresh air. I hope that you're able to take care of the people around about you. My name's G. I represent the Academy, and as always, don't forget to tell the ones you love that you love them. If you want more information, check me out on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, YouTube, LinkedIn, and all other major platforms. Share if you care. Stay safe out there.